Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to episode 254 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, of course, brought to you by jaysfromthecouch.com. Little programming note before I forget. Typically, the Jays from the Couch podcast streams live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. With the new season, the ball season starting up, we're going to switch the podcast to Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So don't pay any attention to that graphic that you see in front of you right now. We'll get a new one up there. But Mondays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, where you can tune in live, listen to our great conversation, and share your own comments and questions, etc., directly into our live stream. And of course, if you miss it, the live stream, because you're watching a baseball game, I guess we'll forgive you as long as you head to Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you find a podcast, subscribe, and catch the audio version there. As well, a little more programming notes for you. The On Feck Circle, hosted by the feckless wonder Steve Feck, will be Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We're moving it an hour earlier. And same thing for Sunny Side of the Dome on Thursdays with Karen Suchar. Both shows, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you tune in, catch all of their fantastic Blue Jays baseball discussion. All right, I'm your host, as always, Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at JFtC. We've got a great episode for you this week. Currently, the Toronto Blue Jays are playing down in Texas. So you know what that means. Fun times. We'll get into that. We'll also talk about the opening series against the New York Yankees. Went very well. I'm happy. You're happy. We're all happy. It's a good time to talk about Blue Jays, and to help me out, I have the feckless wonder himself, Steve Feck. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Sean. It's just you and I this evening. I mean, now, admittedly, I have put weight on during the off season. So, I mean, there would be room still, I still think, with another person next to us on the couch, but we can spread out a little bit.
That's true. That's right. We can spread out, kick our feet up, grab our favorite beverage, and talk about our Blue Jays. Just you and me and the chops. I don't know if you noticed, but I lost a bet to my son. And his solution was that I have to now sport the Dustin McGowan chops.
Nice.
So here they are in all their glory. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. However, when you give your word to your child, you need to keep it.
Absolutely. I would have preferred maybe a Lourdes Gurriel dye job of your hair and beard, or maybe an Oscar Gamble kind of fro, but I mean, you had limited time. So
true.
So this works, but we're still cutting edge. We're still on that cutting edge that we need to be on. So
that's right. And that's where we always are, right? Permanent residents of the cutting edge. So 2021 season has begun for the Toronto Blue Jays, and it was a great series in New York.
Yes.
Steve, I wanted to get your initial thoughts before we dive in deeper a little bit, because we're going to look at some things that popped up in that series that we may be looking at paying attention to over the course of the season. But just in general, what were your thoughts about that New York Yankees series?
Well, the Jays did what they have to do. They won the series. They took 2 of 3. It was from their primary rival, I guess, for the AL East, division, according to all the experts and pundits. It's going to be the Yankees and the Jays. And for every maybe not so great thing that might have happened, there were 2 awesome things that happened that really kind of distracted you from let's say the front 3 of the lineup didn't get that many hits or that many at-bats, but when they did, they were productive at-bats. So even that was good. So I would say overall, Jays took care of business, did what they have to do. They won the series.
And what we wanted them to do, too, let's be clear. I mean, Anytime you can beat the Yankees, it's just, it's a great day. But winning the series, especially early in the season, sending a message, and these two teams are going to meet up quite a bit early on this season, and so I think sending that message is just a icing on the cake. Of course, the way they won the game, there were some things that I think stand out. And we're going to talk about a few of those here before we move into the current Rangers series, because I have some opinions about the Texas Rangers. I don't know if anybody else is aware of that, but I have some ideas. But one of the things that I think stands out to me, and I wanted to get your opinion on, Marcus Semien hitting in the leadoff spot. Obviously, no George Springer. I get it. Everybody assumes that Springer will be that leadoff guy, even though he shouldn't be. In my opinion, he should be batting second with Kevin Biggio leading off. But regardless, I don't get paid to fill out the lineup card. But Marcus Semien leading off. What are your thoughts on having Marcus Semien lead off for the Toronto Blue Jays?
I do not get it. And I have been ranting and raving about that on every possible outlet that I could find. Okay, I've warmed up to the idea of Springer 1, Semien 2. I get it. You want to have the veteran bats up there. I think being able to move Kevin Biggio in various slots on the lineup, I think it makes it a deeper lineup. But if you're going to do that, then Marcus Semien too. Let him get used to being in the 2-hole. Since you already have your best leadoff hitter available, even with Springer out, then you put Kevin Biggio in the leadoff slot. And, and Charlie was asked that after the first game. Well, it was kind of unusual for us to see Marcus Semien being in the leadoff spot. Why is that? And he's like, well, our reports indicate, which is fine, but don't just say my reports indicate. Feed me, Seymour. Tell me what your reports indicate. Because then you're just leaving all these questions as to where are these reports coming from? So I don't get it. I mean, it's worked out, I guess. He's been productive through the first 3.5 games here, so that's fine. But he's stolen a base, and great. I don't get it. I just don't understand it. And this, Ross Atkins, Charlie Montoyo, well, we're going to talk, but we're not going to really say anything until you give you any insights. That's getting really old. It's getting really old. And all you have to do is just don't give us all the details. We're not asking you to let us hack into your scouting system. Okay, we're not the Cardinals or the Astros. We don't need to do that. Just give us some information so that we understand, so that we're not reaching, for our bottle of scotch or beer or whatever it is in the top of the first inning. Let us wait a little bit longer to kind of digest what's going on. I don't know. Well, what do you think, Sean? I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, I think at first when I saw it, I was a little confused. I'll be perfectly honest with you. And I think, you mentioned the veteran presence at the top of the lineup. That could be a thing that Montoyo was leading on. It could have been a number of things, as you said, their research or whatever they did put into it. The analytics said put him at the leadoff spot, which is okay. It didn't work though. That's what I think has gotten me. Marcus Semien heading into today's game against the Rangers in the series, I think he was hitting like $125, something like something ridiculously not leadoff like. Mm-hmm. Now he did collect 2 stolen bases. He is now tied for the major league lead with 2 stolen bases. That's not going to continue. You're not, the most he's ever stolen in a season is 14. So he might hit double digits, but he's not going to, lead the league in stolen bases. So I just don't get it, other than that veteran presence to try and grind out at bats. I don't get it. And then I have to wonder, batting Kevin Biggio behind him, Biggio had some rather not nice looking at bats in that New York series. And, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here, but I feel like maybe hitting behind Semien, that may have had an impact on the approach there at the plate.
Oh, definitely.
From Biggio. Because usually you're used to him putting in a good at bat. He didn't look comfortable. And that's just my opinion. That's my read on it, right? Of course, here we are saying that, and both of them, they went, Simeon and Biggio went back-to-back home runs in Texas. So, what the hell do we know? But I was surprised and surprised to see it now 4 games in a row with Marcus Simeon at the top of the order. The team's winning. So, I mean, but it's not because Marcus Simeon's at the top of the order. That's my thought there.
Right. And you talked about the analytics, and I'm not a big numbers guy. That decision actually drove me to places like Fangraphs and all the other type of places. So, I mean, the only other thing and I didn't see where Simeon is the leadoff hitter over Biggio. I don't get it. You can't say, well, Simeon really wouldn't be productive as a 2-hitter. Well, if you're going to hit him 2 behind Springer, what's the difference? So, I mean, my only guess is that maybe Charlie was playing RBI 21. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. Or Stratomatic, and he had a couple good rolls, and Simeon was, stealing bases and being productive. Maybe that's where it came from, because there just is no rhyme or reason to what that decision was.
Right. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I mean, again, they won. Whether that had anything to do with it or not doesn't matter. When your team's winning, your decisions are your decisions, and you end up looking pretty good, potentially. Which leads me to another decision from Charlie Montoyo, and that is asking Danny Jansen to bunt, and then leaving the bunt sign on through the whole at bat. So the first part of that is, and in fact, you have some experience in scouting and whatnot. Let me ask you this question now that it's just hit me. But why is it that players consistently can get to the major leagues and not know how to bunt?
Because they're not asked to bunt. I mean, they're not asked to bunt in travel ball, in Legion ball, Little League, high school, not even college. They're not asked. Okay. They have metal bats. It is very difficult to bunt with the metal bat. I mean, even if you have that perfect little touch, that little adeptness, something coming off that aluminum bat, it's not going to do what it would come off of a wooden bat.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you go to the Cape Cod League, which is, and I'm sure we're going to see it more in the summer, like with the new Appalachian League and some other things, where they're going to be wooden bat summer college leagues, you will see more of that strategy going on. But they're just not asked to do it. They're not, I don't want to use the word forced, but there are so many things that are dictated by major league front offices for their farm system coaches and their players to do, asking them to practice to bunt. Okay, if you're playing a mid-May game in Dunedin, the Blue Jays against whoever, Bradenton Marauders, is it really going to change the world if you ask somebody to bunt in a non-traditional bunt situation? If you think you could be successful, no. So it's even though, yes, the players theoretically should know how to bunt, if you're not asked to do it, I don't see how you could expect them to be successful when all along the line they haven't been directed to do that.
Right. And I think that was the answer I was expecting. And I wonder if it has this philosophy, to do with the philosophy of not giving up free outs. And that's I get it. I anytime you can not give the other team one of your outs, I think you're doing a good job. And I loved, there was this t-shirt I saw, it says, how to bunt, 1, don't, 2, hit a home run. You know what I mean? And that's I think where, I think that's the kind of the league wide philosophy is, try and score runs as opposed to giving away outs. And if that's the case, and they're not, and organizations are collectively saying, don't bunt, and not teaching it, not emphasizing it, not consistently practicing it throughout the system, then the question is, why in the hell would anybody put out a bunt sign for a major league hitter, knowing full well that people come up and don't know how to bunt?
I think there's two parts to that. One is that Charlie Montoyo is expecting it to be truly a surprise. Even if you're squaring early in the pitch, it's a shock that anybody's really going to bunt. Not taking it off is showing faith in your player. You're telling your player, I know you can do that. Even though all the numbers are telling me you can't, I've seen you, I've watched you enough. I think you can do it. And I think starting, especially with this spring training, Charlie seems to be committed to a more aggressive style on the base paths. You know, Danny Jansen's running. I mean, everybody seems to be running. So it's planting seeds in opposing managers' minds. It's like, well, wait a minute. You know, suddenly now the Blue Jays are running all the time. You know, they're bunting and they're asking unusual people to bunt. We have to really be aware of that. And that really changes the way a pitcher and a catcher are going to approach an at bat. So I really think that's why. I think it's actually a scenario where Charlie is showing that at least one of the marionette strings is broken off his one hand, so he can make that call, to bunt in this situation and ignore what the front office dictations are coming down as far as this is what the reports say.
Right. And I don't have an issue with the let's surprise everybody in the stadium and we'll attempt a bunt or even show bunt. If you can get third baseman out of position by showing bunt, great. Since the league wants to get rid of the shift anyway, these things are going to continue. People are going to try and figure out how to get an advantage in game, whether it's the shift, whether it's the, putting on the bunt, trying to pull a defender out of position, whatever. I don't have an issue with that. Sending runners, I love it. I have been clamoring for speed and stolen bases, not even stolen bases, going first to third, starting the runner anyway, just to be aggressive and to force the other team into a mistake or just even having to make them work harder. So I'm a fan of that. What I don't understand is you have Danny Jansen, who, let's be real, has not at the major league level shown that he can consistently handle the bat. Not consistently. So you're asking him to handle the bat in a very specific way. I don't know. To me, I don't know that it shows faith in his ability to bunt so much as faith in his ability to get out anyway.
Well, Danny Jansen, I did look this up, actually had the most successful sacrifices over the last 2 seasons or season and a half. So he has shown Montoyo, and he does foul a lot of balls off because he's fooled a lot. So really, it's fouling a ball off and bunting. It's not that different. So, would you rather have him bunt and fail, or would you rather have him slow grounded or short double play? I say, that's fine. And again, it's something different. It's giving them the Blue Jays lineup depth is already giving opponents things to ponder and not worry about, but really have in the back of your mind. If you start throwing in these variables, if you're asking, again, Danny Jansen's hitting 190 something or whatever. If you're asking him to bunt, wow. Montoyo's going to do whatever it takes that he thinks is going to win. And I think that's a strategic advantage, even when it fails.
Fair enough. And I think that's something that one of the things that we'll be looking for all season, right, is whether Charlie Montoyo is going to try some new things in conjunction with the front office or directed by the front office or just on his own. It'll be very interesting to see how he now operates in a season where they're expected to win. They're expected to make the postseason. It'll be very interesting to see those in-game decisions and whether or not they improve. One of the other things that we should talk about from this New York series before we move on to the idiot Rangers is this back into the bullpen. They took a $5 million gamble on Kirby Yates, and that didn't work. Out for the year, Tommy John, whatever. It is what it is. However, Julian Merriweather and Jordan Romano have kind of teamed up to make you say, Kirby who? In the first series, Julian Merriweather tied for the league lead with 2 saves. Again, it's early. It's one series. However, save in 2 out of the 3. Jordan Romano gets a win already. My question to you is, and I'm pretty sure a while ago I said Julian Merriweather outside the box bullpen piece. And here he is very much in the box and probably lighting that box on fire, which is awesome to see. So my question to you, Steve, is this the 1-2 punch at the end of a game that is going to because I have an idea as how it's going to affect the rest of the pitching staff, but I want to get your thoughts on those 2 in particular. Is this the 2 guys that you would go with for the remainder of the season?
Oh, absolutely. And in our season preview podcast, that was my hot take, that by the All-Star break, it was going to be, now I thought it would be Romano Merriweather, but it doesn't, either combination. I'm sure they're going to pitch, they're going to alternate in leverage situations. It's going to boil down to Merriweather and Romano. Mm-hmm. Okay. Julian Merriweather showed not only Blue Jays Nation, but Major League Baseball in general, he has the makeup as well as the repertoire to be a lights out end of the game reliever. Not everybody, I think Jordan Romano could be a terrific closer. I truly do. And he may eventually be just that. But when you look at him, I don't know that he strikes that Al Rabowski, Mariano Rivera, kind of like Goose Gossage. I've got the stuff. I'm going to get you out. He just gets it done, which is fine. Julian Merriweather, it was obvious when he was out there, this is my mound. I'm going to throw these 2 pitches. Go ahead and hit it. And they didn't. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he'll have, it's a 162 game season. So yeah, he's going to have some bad outings, but he showed right off the bat, this is my mound. That is my plate. If you beat me, I'll tip my hat to you, but you're not going to beat me. And I think that solidified first series. And I'm as surprised as anyone that that happened so quickly, but I don't think there's any doubt. And once again, I think Charlie Montoyo saw something. And he's going on his instincts to have that happen. You could argue that in the first game, he didn't really have anybody else to turn to. Okay, there was no doubt on Sunday that Merriweather was going to be the pitcher in the 9th. There was no doubt. Even before Romano came on, before him, Merriweather was going to pitch that night. You had no doubt. And you were just on the edge of your seat waiting to see if he could do it again. And he did.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think it's an interesting way to, first of all, introduce a young player, a young pitcher, electric pitcher with an injury history, to introduce them into the big leagues. The White Sox did it with Chris Sale. And whether or not, I'm not suggesting that Merriweather is the next Chris Sale. So far he likes the sleeves on his jersey. So, there's the difference there.
But does he like the baby blues? Remember, Sale hated that throwback Sox uniform. So is he, like me, really annoyed that they wore baby blues on opening day?
Right. Well, who knows? That remains to be seen. I don't know that anybody actually looks good in those baby blues. I like them. They're sharp, but I don't know that they make somebody look good. However, beside the point, you kind of threw me off here, but
that's my job.
But it might be a good way to transition because they still believe that he's a starter. At least that's what they said. Now, granted, if he saves 30 games this summer, that'll be very difficult to convince me that he should be moved back into the rotation. But it might be a good way to get him acclimated to the big leagues. But what it really does for me is it shortens the game for the Blue Jays pitching staff, who have starters who may be able to go 2 times through an order. So then you only need 1, maybe 2 relievers to get through a game. Obviously, you can't have Merriweather pitching every 9th inning of every game, but you're not going to anyway. But to me, what it does is if you, on the average, if you have those 2 guys at the back end for the 8th and the 9th, and then you can get your starters to go through 5, 6 innings, I think this once questionable pitching staff could end up to be much stronger than people think because they have that anchor at the back end.
It could. Again, it's getting to those guys. You can't have your starters going 3 and 4 and even 5 innings every start without wearing out your bullpen. And where games are lost as bullpens get tired are not necessarily at the end. It's kind of iffy for the Jays to a degree because Merriweather and Romano have never been able to pitch leverage situations over a full 162. But you lose your games in that little bridge situation, getting from your starter to the guys that you're counting on to lock things down. That's where more games are lost, and that's where the fatigue, that's where the pitchers that are being asked to fill a role that they've never asked before, that's more, I think, where the question marks will remain until really the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. But it does highlight guys like Trent Thornton, who could go 1 time through an order, and Tyler Chatwood potentially, you know what I mean? So there, the Blue Jays bullpen and their entire pitching staff is kind of constructed for this to go well, if it works that way. But of course, as you said, we saw this last season with the bullpen getting exhausted early on. So they're on a razor thin edge here. To being successful or not. Let's move into the Texas Rangers series. P.S. Thank you, Texas Rangers, for sending Jordan Romano back. Love it. As well, got to kick. The Texas Rangers somehow got tired of Rougned Odor hitting less than 200. And he's not on their roster, which I had a massive chuckle about. He's now, playing in maybe AAA, trying to sell those T-shirts that he had made up. Good luck to you, bud. Anyway, but Texas Rangers series started today. Texas Rangers said, screw it. COVID can't get into our stadium. And, filled the stadium for this series, and the Blue Jays come into town. Kevin Biggio, Marcus Semien hit back-to-back home runs. But what I wanted to talk about, because you mentioned the starting rotation, Steve Matz made his Blue Jays debut and went 6 1/3 inning, 2 hits, a single earned run, and 9 strikeouts, and his velocity is up. If that is the Steve Matz that they got from the New York Mets, dude, this team looks just that much scarier.
Oh, sure. And I saw that. I know our Bob Ritchie posted something up behind the scenes there that I saw before we came on. It is promising that his velocity is up. What I would like to see over the course of several starts now is his velocity still ticking up in the 4th and 5th and 6th innings? He's a guy that he didn't today, but he tends to have a lot of base runners on. He's pitching with base runners on. Is that velocity going to translate when he's pitching out of the stretch and not out of the windup? Those are all little minor things that you can't determine after 1 start and after 4 games. But like you said, yes, it's very, very promising. I mean, Steven Matz is not what he was in that 60 game sample last year, but I don't know that Steven Matz has ever been that kind of Steven Matz for an extended period of time. He's shown flashes, which is why the Mets have stuck with him and gave him every opportunity when he was still with the Mets. But yeah, again, and that's the thing. It's a house of cards. Okay, you can build a really impressive looking house of cards that stays up no matter what, but one little thing that slips can cause another thing to collapse into something, and that can collapse either partially or completely, and that's the thing that we have to look at throughout the entire season with the Jays. Is this Atkins inning diet? Is this pitching experiment? Because it really is an experiment for the Blue Jays. They've never really taken this approach before, not over 162. Is it going to hold up? And yes, today, that's great. Mm-hmm. Good for Steven Matz, good confidence builder. I want to see more.
Yeah, no, and I don't disagree there. I think when Blue Jays land heard that Steve Matz was coming over from the Mets, there wasn't exactly a whole lot of cheering going on. So it's nice to see, first of all, that his spring training has carried on through to his first start. And I would, if you had told me Steve Matz would go 6 1/3 innings, give up 1 run and strike out 9, I would have gladly taken it, but I probably would have doubted that would be the outcome. So, there's that, right? How long he can keep it up, who knows? That remains to be seen, of course, but it is absolutely a pleasant surprise, in my opinion.
And how much of this, and again, it's only 4 games, how much of this is Pete Walker? I saw MLB.com said Charlie Montoyo, manager of the year. I'd say that if they pull this off with this pitching staff as it's constructed, I say that Pete Walker gets co-manager of the year, even though he's a pitching coach, because he really, and that's not a knock on Charlie. Okay. But I'm just saying, if he can pull this off, and he's done amazing things with pitchers that you would never expect, if he could pull this off, wow. I mean, there has to be an award. You have to make up an award. Okay. If Pete Walker can carry this through.
We'll have to name them after you, of course. We'll call them the Fecks. No, we'll come up with a clever name.
Well, I have a couple, but I'm not sure that we should do this. I think we're considered at best PG-13. So I don't want to extend, I don't want to cause any more problems than I've already caused over the year that I've been here. So,
okay. So looking ahead then at the schedule, the Blue Jays 3 in Texas, and then they've got the Angels and their pitching staff, and I giggle, and then the Yankees again. So right off the bat, you've got, I don't know, everybody's for some reason every year says, oh, the Angels are going to be a surprise, and I'm still waiting to be surprised. But it's not a bad little stretch here. Their next off day doesn't come for another 3, where are we at here? 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 games. So we got 13 games in a row with Kansas City after the Yankees. What are your thoughts? What are you looking for against the Angels? The next series, or even over the next week and a half or so. What is it that you're looking for from this Blue Jays team?
I'm actually more excited to see how they match up against the Angels and the Royals than I am seeing the Yankees, them playing the Yankees again. Okay, the Yankees are the Yankees. So it's almost, you just assume they're going to smash the ball. They somehow figure out a way to work things out. The Angels have had a sneaky off season with basically an Alex Anthopoulos Jr. basically as their new GM. I forget the guy's name, but he was Alex's right-hand man in Atlanta. He's made some sneaky good moves. His pitching, if everything falls, just like the Jays are looking in the mirror when they look across and they're looking at the Angels. They have an awesome lineup. They have some young hitters that have to still prove consistency. But then you still have the mashers in Trout and Pujols and Rendon. I mean, you have dependable hitters you know are going to happen. So that series really, I think, will tell us a lot. If they win 3 or 4 from the Angels, I don't care that it's a home game. It's not a home game because you're in Dunedin. Yes, you're the home team batting last, and then the Royals, as again, they played the Rangers, so maybe you have to roll back your expectations. I think the Royals are going to be in it the entire year. They had a terrific offseason, and they have players in roles that their talents are suited for. I think the Royals are going to surprise everybody and remain in it all year long. And their GM can pull off deals when he needs to. I think, again, looking at the Royals and Angels, you're looking in the mirror. This is what you really are, Blue Jays. You need to beat these teams if you want to be a wild card.
Interesting. Although I wouldn't say that Toronto necessarily has the ghost of Albert Pujols to run out there. I hate saying it that way, but he's not what he once was, and that makes me sad because for forever I had this love of Albert Pujols, and it kills me to watch the end of his career. But this time next week, we'll be back and we'll see. Give me a prediction. So you've got 3 games against the Rangers, 4 games against LA. What are your thoughts as far as how that's going to go as far as wins and losses goes for the Blue Jays?
I think they sweep the Rangers, and their offense really just goes to town. The Rangers don't have the pitching depth. They're young. They're in a rebuild. So I think they sweep the Rangers. I would hope they win 3 or 4 from the Angels, but I think they're going to split because, again, I think they're evenly matched teams.
Okay.
I think they take the Yankees to town again just to prove a point. They win that series and win the Royal Series.
Okay, so
that's not sweeping, but
All right, so by my count, this time next week, the Blue Jays should be 3-5-2. Is your prediction? Okay, all right. I would be thrilled with that. It may be more like 4-3. Hopefully not the other way, of course. I would say probably 2 of 3 against the Rangers, and then a split against the Angels, maybe. So, still winning a game over 500 for the week, but I don't see them. I would be surprised if they swept the Rangers, but would I be so happy? Oh man, I cannot. And poor Chris Woodward, manager of the Rangers, used to be a Blue Jay, and he's likable and he's awesome, but oh man, is he just playing in the wrong organization or managing? Excuse me. Anyway, all right. Feck, we're just about out of time here. Let everybody know how they can follow you and all of your exploits.
Well, obviously, there's the On Feck Circle, which, as you mentioned at the top of the show, switches to 6 p.m. Eastern time. So we have to amend our application to have it now called Jays from the Couch Time from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. Just kind of like daylight savings time and everything. We need to change it around. You can also follow me on Twitter at US of Jays. There's a US of Jays Facebook page. I'm doing a daily video diary of the Blue Jays 2021 season there. You can also go to the new website, which is usofjays.net, where I will generally publish things that good sense means I shouldn't be publishing on Jays from the Couch. So,
and for everything else that that is publishable, head to jaysfromthecouch.com. Of course, we've got a whole bunch of coverage coming up for you there. Looking forward to I'm just so glad baseball is back, and a podcast just feels different when you're actually talking about live games. So Steve, thank you very much for joining me this week. And to our viewers and our listeners, remember our podcast every Monday evening at 6 p.m. streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And you can catch the audio version on Apple, Google, Spotify, everywhere you find a podcast, you'll find us there. So for Steve, for Chris Woodward, oh man. And for Julian Merriweather, this is Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at DoyleJFtC. Hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.